Surprising absolutely nobody given the nature of the show, the ending of Hierarchy in episode 7 is a cavalcade of reveals and setups for a second season, including a now obligatory post-credits epilogue. For the benefit of those brave soldiers who suffered through 7 predictable episodes of this cliched and salacious teen drama, which is cribbing from a format already past its use-by date. Let's briefly run through everything that happened so we'll have something to refer back to when this inevitably becomes Netflix's replacement for Elite and runs for 7 increasingly terrible seasons. Kang Ha's revenge against Jushin High School students was ultimately successful in one very meaningful way. The school itself had to acknowledge its failings. It's unlikely that Kang Ha's mission is over in the traditional sense. There are still students to torment after all. But if by some miracle Hierarchy lives up to its limited series designation, the point will have been satisfyingly proved. The school's principal and board had to answer for negligence, and all the students connected to In-han's death were at least brought to the attention of the police. Whether or not any of them face direct consequences for their actions, Professor Ji-soon is arrested, to be fair, is beside the point. Kang Ha's actions crucially prevented the matter from being swept under the rug and forced the point that in a social powder keg like this, nothing occurs in a vacuum. If you're complicit, you're guilty. Hierarchy, Episode 7 is surprisingly reluctant to actually condemn these people though. In fact, redemption is a major theme, and the idea that everyone who bullied In-han would magically return to school a much better version of themselves is a bit of a stretch. Still, there are at least redemptive actions, which is a start. Rian comes forward about his participation in the bullying and begs Kang Ha for forgiveness. Woo Jin gave Jai all the recordings at great familial risk. These things aren't the be-all and end-all, but they do matter, and Hierarchy clearly wants us to buy into the idea of Rian, Woo Jin, and Hee-ra having learned some valuable lessons, perhaps potent enough ones to completely upend the dynamic of Jushin High School and close the gap between the wealthy students and the victimized scholarship kids. Wishful thinking? Probably. Romance is always a key subplot in teen dramas, and it's Jai's love triangle with Rian and Kang Ha that provides the bulk of the stuff in Hierarchy. But there's no ideal romantic conclusion. Jai ultimately determines that she needs to rebuild her own life before committing to anything, and Rian ought to do the same. They do not end season 1 together, despite how much history they share. Getting to this point was traumatic for Jai, who suffered a miscarriage that caused her to isolate herself and break up with Rian. This, in turn, led her to become closer to Kang Ha, but despite obviously reciprocated feelings, tinged with a little guilt over In-han, her heart does seem to be with Rian. Part of the reason I don't trust Netflix is that, despite a clear limited series designation, there is a post-credits scene in Hierarchy Episode 7 that clearly sets up a second season. In the scene, Hee-ra finds a corpse in one of the classrooms. There has been another murder, and Rian receives an anonymous, threatening text. This clear tease for a follow-up suggests that Kang Ha's revenge may not be over. On the contrary, it may have been taken to new levels. Either way, someone's dead, which means someone else killed them, and that's all Elite ever needed to justify 7 seasons and counting. What do you think? Tell us in the comments and keep watching Film Buff Baby.